TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Welcome to the WTIM Morning Show, heard live on the Big 870 across central Illinois and streamed at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com and the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com live stream on Facebook and WTIM TV on YouTube. Your guest this morning, Representative Avery Bourne, and she's here to talk a little bit about the veto session happening in Springfield at the moment. Welcome back to the program, Representative Bourne.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, update us. What happened over the last week or so at the veto session?
Yeah, so we are scheduled for 2 weeks of veto session. Last week was very uneventful. The Democrats ended up canceling one day, canceling half of another day, and we were really in and out on Wednesday. And so it was very uneventful, which leads to probably a pretty busy week this week.
Yeah, I know one of the things you did over the last week or so with a group of House Republicans, you introduced a bill to limit the governor's emergency powers, or at least to maybe not limit, but at the very least include the legislature in those decisions.
Yeah, that's right. So this is one of the priorities we said the legislature should be taking up in veto session. It's a bill to limit the governor's ability to continually pass executive orders. So a state of emergency can last for 30 days. And then after that, the governor would have to come back to the legislature to get approval. This makes a lot of sense. And this is about restraining every future governor. Certainly it's about J.B. Pritzker, but it's also about good government moving forward.
Right. It's about the principle that the legislature should be involved in all major decisions, no matter what the situation, whether it's a pandemic or some other emergency that could happen.
Absolutely right. I mean, we have seen over the last 20 months the ability for the governor to rule by executive order, and we should make sure that doesn't happen again. We need to learn from this and make our laws very strong and very clear that the legislature, the people's house, right, has to be involved in these decisions.
What do you anticipate in the coming week?
We've seen a lot of rumors about what the legislature could take up. Certainly there will be a congressional map taken up. Also, we've seen the healthcare right of conscience bill might come up. There are some other things that are being floated, like the parental notification of abortion repeal. So we could see a lot of bills, or they could come in, do a congressional map, and leave. We will see.
On the topic of congressional maps, well, not the congressional maps, but the Senate and judicial maps, I believe I saw a lawsuit or a federal judge threw out those maps. Am I on the right page here?
Yes. So after the House and Senate and the governor passed and signed the first iteration of the legislative maps and then the second iteration of the legislative maps, we as House Republicans and Senate Republicans, along with a couple of other groups, sued, saying that those maps were not fair and not constitutional. The federal court sided with us in our first claim against the first map. They threw out the first map, and now we're in what's called the remedial phase on the second map, which means the court is now reviewing the second map to see if it's constitutional. So we won on our first claim, and now on our second claim in this second map, we're waiting for a decision from the court.
And now going back to the congressional maps, how do you foresee that going in this coming week with the veto session?
Yeah, the proposals that we've seen are very clearly trying to maintain Nancy Pelosi's majority in Washington, D.C. So we know this is likely going to be a friendly election year for Republicans across the country. Nancy Pelosi's majority is very slim, and so they're trying to squeeze every single Democratic district out of Illinois that they possibly can. So I anticipate that the House and Senate Democrats and the governor will put forward something and ultimately pass something that is wildly gerrymandered to favor Democrats, just so that they can hopefully survive nationwide is their goal. So that's a disservice to every voter in Illinois when it's done for national political reasons instead of putting together communities of interest.
I understand too that a heavily Republican district it's being redrawn so that Illinois loses. I believe it's Representative Ronnie Davis is in trouble, not in trouble. That's a poor term, but he's in danger of losing a seat because of the way that these new maps are drawn too. Am I kind of starting to veer off here? It's a very complex situation.
It's kind of wonky. So both Illinois lost a seat. So we have 18 seats currently. We have to draw a map with 17 seats because we lost people in the census. So we're losing a district right off the top. And then the Democrats are trying to draw these maps for ultimate partisan gain. And so we see multiple Republican incumbents drawn in together. In the latest map, we see Representative Mary Miller and Representative Mike Boss drawn together, and Representative Adam Kinzinger and Representative Darren LaHood drawn in together. And so they're certainly trying to eliminate Republican members of Congress from Illinois. Their final map, I'm not sure what it will look like, but certainly Republicans are within the crosshairs here.
I have a question from a viewer on the WTIM stream if you're ready for it. Yeah, so this viewer wants your opinion on the governor's plan to take away a person's right of choice, relating to the healthcare right of conscience. First of all, will that be taken up in the veto session? Second of all, your thoughts on that?
It is scheduled for committee today. I serve on the executive committee, and it's scheduled to be in our committee this afternoon. So it may get a vote. Last I saw last night, there were something like 20,000 opponents to the bill filed. So I think that's a pretty strong indication of where people are at. I oppose changing a law that was inherently designed to protect religious freedom. If the legislature wants to take up Pritzker's mandates and vote them up or down, I think we should do that. But to limit a bill that is there for religious freedoms, I think is the wrong way to do it.
So you believe that there is a way that the legislature could give Governor Pritzker's mandates more teeth without going towards this bill designed for religious freedom?
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not supportive of upholding all of the governor's mandates.
Good to be clear.
But the legislature absolutely could say this is appropriate, this isn't. And so to go after a bill that was meant to protect religious freedoms specifically for healthcare workers and others, I think is the wrong way to do it. And the Democrats are trying to do something without having to take a vote on the governor's mandates, because I think that would be unpopular for them.
What else do you foresee going on in the legislature? I know you mentioned it's going to be a packed couple of days because of, kind of a lame duck-ish type session last week. So what are you expecting in the next few days as you head into the State House today?
Yeah, we're scheduled to be there Tuesday to Thursday. I think maps will be at the top of the list. Healthcare right of conscience, certainly. But I would watch. I mean, it is possible any piece of legislation could be called. We've seen committees be scheduled for this afternoon for, minor changes to bills that have already passed. But we're trying to stay vigilant, and hopefully big controversial issues like the parental notification of abortion repeal don't come up.
And I believe we'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. You're listening to the WTIM Morning Show and watching on the WTIM stream on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com, Facebook, and WTIM TV on YouTube. More from Representative Avery Bourne here on WTIM, your information station, in just a moment.
WTIM on its many platforms, AM, FM, and online, brings you Taylorville Tornado football, boys and girls basketball all season long, and playoff games of all teams. Tornado sports on WTIM and streamed live on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com are brought to you by Blakely Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, Taylorville Vision Source, and the senior citizens of Christian County, all in Taylorville.
The purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
Land family, good weather. All a farmer needs for the simple life. Just a field, a family, sunshine, and rain. And a drone for digital imaging. And software to run geospatial analysis. And a commercial driver's license for heavy equipment. And a spreadsheet program to help maximize your return on investment. And an understanding of genetics, biology, economics, climatology, banking, global market prices, land lease negotiation, engineering, and HR management. Oh, and estate planning, so you can pass this so-called simple life onto your kids. At Pioneer, we're proud to work with generations of American farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth. So from your friends at Pioneer, thank you, farmers.
The air is crisp. The nights are cooler. Fall has arrived. Even though your pool is closed for the season, you can still enjoy the outdoors. When the weather's cool, the best dinners are prepared on the grill. Southern Ledge Pool and Patios in Taylorville can help complement any meal. Stop in today and get 10% off all grilling items, spices, rubs, accessories, sugar-free healthy gourmet seasoning blends, and more. Whether you're grilling at home or tailgating at a game, Southern Ledge Pool and Patios in Taylorville has just what you need.
Moequa Pharmacy reminds you to salute the fighting men and women of the United States military. Let's make sure they know how much we appreciate them for putting their lives on the line. This message from Moequa Pharmacy at 620 North Putnam Street. You'll find the best prices on prescriptions along with great service and convenience. A locally owned business. Open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Visit online at moequapharmacy.com. Proudly saluting all of our service men and women.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show, heard live on 96.1 FM in Christian County and streamed online on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com Facebook page and WTIM TV YouTube. Your guest this morning, Representative Avery Bourne, and she's here talking about the veto session in Springfield. And before we went to break, we kind of hinted at one of the things that may come up in the veto session, the Parental Notification of Abortion Act. And for those who are not familiar, what is the Parental Notification of Abortion Act?
Yes, Illinois is one of a majority of states that requires that before minor girls receive an abortion, they have to notify their parents or get consent from their parents. In Illinois, it's only notification, but other states have consent. And this is a really common sense way to make sure that girls get the support that they need, information that they need, and that parents know what's going on in their minor daughter's life. So we think it's a really important protection for girls, and there are some in Springfield who are hoping to repeal this.
And just to be clear, too, it's not to take away from a minor's right to get an abortion. It's just saying that this, or having consent, right? It's about having parents know that their child is having this procedure.
Yes, it's only notification. And we actually see that this doesn't split along traditional pro-life, pro-choice lines, Republican, Democrat lines. We see a lot of people who are pro-choice that say, if my daughter is choosing to get an abortion, I want to know. I want to go with her. So this is something that isn't, certainly those of us who are pro-life support this law being in place, but people who are pro-choice do too. It just makes a lot of good common sense.
Now, you are a pro-choice advocate, I presume.
I'm pro-life.
Oh, I meant to say pro-life, yes. That's what
okay.
I meant to say. Anyway, so you're a pro-life advocate. Now, why do you think that this law is important?
I think this law is important for a few reasons. So number one, I, as a mom, want to know any medical procedure my child is having and want to be involved in that. But even beyond that, something like abortion means that these girls have sometimes suffered abuse, sometimes suffered rape, sometimes they're being trafficked. And so this bill goes beyond just letting parents know. It is actually a tool to get them out of abusive situations, to get them out of trafficking situations. And we have heard actual stories of this law saving girls from trafficking and abusive relationships. And so it's important to protect them, but it also just goes so much beyond that to helping save some of these girls who are in terrible situations.
Right. If a parent or a guardian is notified of this procedure and it is such a situation where it is abusive or even worse, that way perhaps this adult or this parent or guardian can step in and go to the proper resources to make sure it stops.
Absolutely. And sometimes this is the first thing that gives them a heads up that something's happening, especially now with social media, and things happen in their minor daughter's lives that parents may not know about, or that the daughter doesn't feel comfortable telling them about. And so this really is a strong protection. It makes a lot of sense. And just can't understand how people could want to take this off the books.
Anything else you'd like to say about the Parental Notification of Abortion Act?
I'm really hopeful we can get some pro-choice Democrats on our side and not get this bill called, but we're ready for a fight if they decide to bring it up.
Now, one of the other things that you're hoping, obviously you have a packed bill and a packed agenda this week, or not a packed bill, but a packed agenda this week. You're hoping that you can get a new Inspector General on the ballot.
Yes, some folks might remember that earlier this year, the House and Senate Democrats passed a bill that they called an ethics bill that ultimately forced our legislative inspector general to resign. She said, if these are the parameters I have to operate under, you're taking away all of the teeth of my office. I can't serve in this capacity. And so that was really upsetting for those of us who oppose the bill, because we need a strong legislative inspector general to crack down on misdeeds by lawmakers. And so we are looking for a replacement and conducting interviews and trying to find a good person. We need to appoint a new legislative inspector general before December, when our current legislative inspector general is scheduled to leave the office. So that is a really high priority. It doesn't get a lot of publicity, right? The Office of Legislative Inspector General, but it really is the one office that holds the legislature accountable, and it's so, so important.
What was some of the language in the bill that the Inspector General felt that she would not be able to do her job? What in that ethics bill did she see that raised all those red flags and made her step down?
Yeah, it did two things. So it both did not include language that she wanted. She wanted stronger abilities to do her job within the law that was not included, but also it actually stripped her of some of her authority. And so it was twofold. It did not go as far as she wanted it to, and it actually took away some of her authority to investigate and some of her jurisdiction. So I'll be frank, it might be difficult to find somebody who's willing to step into this role that has been stripped of some of its jurisdiction, but it's very important that we find somebody who's willing to step up and do it.
And to make it a bit hard, I'm sure you can't just appoint somebody from outside of Illinois. It needs to be somebody in Illinois, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, there are kind of strict criteria. It needs to be somebody with investigative experience. For example, two of our former legislative inspectors general have been retired judges, right? They need to have investigatory experience, be able to conduct these interviews with people and explain their findings. So it is kind of a high level of qualifications, and we need somebody who's going to do it professionally and with integrity.
Any other thoughts before you go, Representative Bourne?
No, I would just ask that if people are watching along this week as we're in session, please feel free to reach out on issues that you are concerned about, or if you have questions. It's kind of hard sometimes to follow exactly what's happening, so I'm happy to give updates or answer any questions.
All right, Representative Bourne, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day before you Head into the State House on the WTIM Morning Show, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
You're listening to the WTIM Morning Show and watching it online at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com on the Facebook page and WTIM TV on YouTube. More from the Morning Show in a moment here on WTIM, your information station.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241